Welcome again to On the Couch. Two of our members have gone on a road trip. Tony Norris and Ken Hudson, they've headed out west, out to Mudgee, and they've taken On the Couch with them this week. So I'm going to hand straight to Tony, who's going to look after us tonight. Thanks, Tony.
Good morning, Internets. Welcome to this special edition of On the Couch, which I've stolen from Adam just for this week only. We have a special group of people we're going to meet today. I'd like to introduce you to James and Brittany Damond. They're our church link missionaries who live in Mudgee, and I'm here in Mudgee with Ken Hudson as we came to interview them and see how their ministry's going. Welcome to On the Couch, guys.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to start off, can you tell me what your favourite movie is?
Well, for me, I'm perhaps a little bit outside the box, but in the 1980s, when I was a small boy, my parents showed me The Man from Snowy River, and featuring or starring Sigrid Thornton and Tom Burlinson and a couple of other well-known people. And that influenced me very greatly as a child, and it's really started to begin a great interest in rural Australia for me. It's still my favourite film, 30 odd years later, and it's actually shaped me in a great way. So that's really my favourite film.
Okay.
And for me, one that never fails to give me a laugh is Steve Martin's Pink Panther. So funny.
Okay. Can you tell me how you guys met?
We both worked at St Clement's in Mossman. I've been there all my life. James worked there from when did you start working there? How old were you?
2008 for 9 years.
Okay. I went on staff at some point, probably maybe 2010, 2011 or something. So I knew James, and one thing led to another.
Okay. And how did you guys meet?
Meet.
Yeah, well...
Just at church, yeah.
Just at church.
Just at church, yeah.
Okay. James works as an evangelist in the Mudgee area. He previously worked in Narromine for about 3 years.
That's correct.
And so James, tell me, how did you become an evangelist, and what is an evangelist for you?
I became a Christian in 2004, and then a year later, something quite significant happened in my own life, which I really felt as a call to ministry. It was during the winter of 2005 that I was awake one cold night, and I had sharp pains on my left upper chest, and I thought I was having a heart attack, but I was only in my early 20s, so I thought, well, it's possible, perhaps unlikely, but it's possible. And during that experience, I really came to understand things a whole lot more clearly in terms of what my life significance was and purpose in life. And really the result of that in those moments was that my purpose was not in what I was doing, but was in fact in ministry, to do ministry. And so I shared that information with an old and wise mentor of mine, and we just held on to that. A year later, there was another experience that I had in South Australia in the little town of Hawker, and it really affirmed me again in terms of ministry being the future for me. And then 1 year again later, I was due to have some surgery, the first surgery I've had in life, and as I was just going through my life, making sure that I was right with God as I was going into this operation, should anything untoward happen, I really sensed that God was impressing upon my spirit that everything would be fine. My time to leave this world was not yet, but instead my purpose was to share the gospel with as many people as I can before I die.
Okay. And this was the sort of work you were doing in Narromine for the past 3 years before you came to Mudgee? Can you give me a little bit of summary of how that turned out, what you did in the Narromine district?
Yes, indeed. The Narromine ministry followed from some years of ministry doing evangelism in Mossman, in which we learned lots of things. Some things worked really well and some didn't, and we were able to take all of that information and learning to Narromine, whereby we were involved specifically in an evangelism ministry of seeking to reach out and to connect with as many people as we could, and to share the gospel and to seek to establish people on a pathway to knowing more about Jesus and actually to be established in fellowship. And what that looked like was that we methodically just went through the district, visiting every farm, every home, every business place, and just seeking to connect with people and to help people to make an informed decision about Jesus, because there's a great deal of ignorance in that district, as indeed there is in Mossman, where we previously were, and indeed also here. And we just wanted to give people that opportunity to make an informed decision.
Okay. And Brittany, during this time in Narromine,
Yes.
I presume you were supporting James in this ministry. Were you working, or did you
Yes.
join the Country Women's Association?
So no, I didn't join the Country Women's Association. When we first arrived, I helped James do his ministry for about 15 months. The church didn't know us, the diocese didn't know us. It was a good opportunity for them to get to know us, and I think that we had to figure out what ministry looked like in this diocese. I think like James had lots of experience. I didn't. It was quite a good opportunity for me to get to know the people and the place, and to have wonderful conversations with people about Jesus. It was probably one of the most valuable uses of my time, I think, as a person coming in to Central West. So I think I understand Narromine a lot better because of that. If I went straight to work at a school, I'm trained as a teacher, I would have lost that. I wouldn't have understood the kids as much as I think I do now. So did that for 15 months, visiting with James. And then at that point, people at church had been trained how to do evangelism. They wanted to help out with James. There was a large amount of people and enough to fill a good roster easily. There wasn't so much of a need for me to help so closely as I had previously. So I thought, okay, I should see if there's any work that I can do. And within 2 weeks, God raised up a music teaching job, which is what I'm qualified to do, at the next town in Trangie, and I took it, and that was a great experience. Then changed to St John's in Dubbo, which was fantastic as well. And that was part-time, so I could help James but also work as well. So that was my Narromine stint.
Okay.
I didn't see myself being part of the CWA, which is wonderful. They did wonderful things. But I just didn't think that was the best use of my time.
You didn't exchange any scone recipes that I could get off
No,
you?
I did exchange quite a few recipes, but that was from people coming to our home and us being hospitable.
Okay.
We lived next door to one of the local cake champions in the local show, and we picked up quite a few things.
You got all the secrets.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me ask you both, because you both seem to be in this ministry. It's not James just doing evangelism. It's a two people type situation. What are the best parts of doing this ministry for you? And secondly, what are the most difficult things, the difficult times that you go through ministry?
For me, I think that one of the best things is being able to see people move from a state of uncertainty and fear approaching the concept of evangelism to the point whereby you return from having done evangelism on one outing, where you may have gone and visited a farm or what have you, and the conversation's gone well, and more than just well, it's actually we've been able to share Jesus with people, and we may see that there is ongoing ministry in that situation. There's joy amongst the people that are being trained. There's joy that I experience too, and I find that to be a real high. And throughout that process of just gaining that experience, they go through leaps and bounds in terms of their actual progress. So just seeing them develop in that context and seeing a lot of the fears that they have, which we all have, I'm sure people in your congregations have them too, but just seeing that placated and actually seeing, no, what Jesus is saying we are to do. He has authority to command, and also it's very true that he's with us as we go forward. In regards to the drawbacks or the downsides or the challenges, I think that, of course, when anyone rejects the gospel after you've given them clear explanation of who Christ is and what He's done for people, that's a very sad thing. But of course, all we can do is discharge our responsibility of actually sharing that gospel. There can also, and I think it's important to be really real about this, as we proclaim Christ, the evil one does not like what happens. And there are all sorts of things that he does to try and obstruct the advancing of God's kingdom in any area. We're very aware of that, and that's a daily factor for us. So they're challenges, but they are not insurmountable. In fact, we continue to persevere, and yeah, that's what I think.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. For me, I think what some of the joys. I think working together with God's people, like in the Great Commission, is a wonderful thing. People sharing great joy and supporting each other in that, and it's like I get such satisfaction from like being a church and reaching out thoroughly to your community around you, connecting, sharing the gospel. Like if that wasn't happening, I would be so sad. But seeing that and fulfilling that is very satisfying. So that's a good thing. Something that I can find challenging is sort of in between times, because my role is always fluid and shifting. I want to support James in the way that is most helpful always, and so with each move that can sometimes just be shaken and knowing what to do. So like at the moment, like I'm a casual teacher, and so that's not really, it's a role, but you never know what you're doing day to day, and it's like, okay, does James need my help? Like, where should I be investing my time best? So just that unsure, that fluidity can be a challenge. Yes.
Okay, thank you. We're practicing social distancing today, which is why we're not, why we're not all on the one couch. So, a little bit of an extra question. How has COVID-19 and social distancing factored into what's been happening in ministry for the past few months?
Look, in a major way. With a ministry of evangelism, you could well think, oh goodness, that's sort of the death knell, or certainly going to harm it considerably. But it really has not been that at all. It's only strengthened our ministry, I believe. One of the things that we're seeking to do, slightly different to Narromine, is that we're seeking to build a team from scratch. So I'm seeking to build up a team and then to go out and to evangelise. Whereas at Narromine, Brittany and I started to evangelise, and we built up the team that followed in the train of that. But here we're trying to copy Jesus and to build it up one by one. And fortunately, that's actually happening. But I think that's largely been aided by this time whereby people have been freed up to be able to meet virtually in constructive and focused ways through Zoom or whatever other virtual program you have. And we've had the time to be able to do that. By the grace of God, we've been keen to do that. And I think we've really been able to make a lot more ground during this time. So I feel as though there is a deep cohesion amongst the people whom God is raising up, who are interested in evangelism. And I think that is a fantastic foundation for actually having an evangelism team.
Okay. So on building those teams, what is actually the plan for Mudgee? Is it to one-on-one evangelise, or to train up people, or both? And what is the overall plan for this area? Is it just Mudgee, the township? Is it the towns around the area, like Ralston, Candos, Golong?
Yeah, sure. Look, it is, we want to reach out to everyone as best we can in the township of Mudgee and also around it. So Mudgee is a township, it's anywhere between 10 to 12,000 people. There's a general rule of thumb, I think, there's 50% of the township population in the surrounding area. So there's another 6,000 out there. That takes it up to 18,000. which is a bigger project, if you like, or mission than we had at Narromine, which was only 6,000 in the entire district, which we reached out to. So what we're seeking to do is reach out to these people as best we can, just going and visiting and having a chat with people, finding out where they're at, sharing the gospel, and in that process, seeking to train people to do likewise, so that when we go on to another district in Central West, there'll be people here who will continue that ministry. They'll continue to follow up people,
right.
and there'll be new people who will move into the area, of course, and they'll need to be visited. So we're actually always making sure that the church is connected with every household as best as possible. So that's really what we're seeking to do. A major component of that, of course, as I mentioned, is actually training people in evangelism, and that's part of the role of an evangelist. First of all, to share the gospel, fulfilling the Great Commission, but secondly, to equip the Christians for this work of ministry. And we do that principally by giving people experience, but there's also theory and things like that, one-on-one stuff that I will do with them to be able to help them to coach them. But we also want to encourage the general congregation. There are people out there who, not expressed interest in evangelism, and we've just been discerning who's interested and so forth. But there are people who are like that, and but we want to try and raise the awareness of evangelism, or a similar level of enthusiasm for evangelism in that church as well. And there are a couple of ways we're trying to do that, just so that they have the opportunity to be able to grow in evangelism.
Okay. Let me ask you this as a final question. Where do you see the two of you being in 10 years' time, and what impact do you think you'll make on the central west of New South Wales during those 10 years if you end up staying in the area?
Yeah.
Where will you be in 10 years' time, and what would you love to see as the impact of your ministry in 10 years' time?
Yeah, great. We've never had this conversation really explicitly, so it's quite an interesting question to actually ask. But I think, though, we are generally of the same mind, in the sense that we see that God has called us to the central west of New South Wales, and we don't see that necessarily being for the short term of just one or two particular focus ministries on districts. I think that we do have, we are called to work considerably in the central west. Now, just how long that is, I really don't know.
Because, for example, we have no idea how, we know where Narromine is at the moment. We don't know what that'll look like in 3 years. We don't know what people will join them and how that will grow.
Sure.
Here, it's a bigger town, different set of people. A lot more people seem to be wanting to be involved. We don't know how that will grow. It could be much quicker than we'd ever imagined. It feels like the ministry is just about to burst. It's already bursting, and
right.
That's seems a lot faster than what it was at Narromine. And there's reasons for that. Just different place, different
how God works.
and how God works. And it might be we might go to another place in 4 years, and it might be really slow.
But what I can say, and because the question you asked is a very good one, and I'm particularly though drawn to the second part, which is what impact do you hope to have upon the central west of New South Wales? And I think specifically, I do hope that what we will see is more and more districts reached out to. I hope that there will be a multiplication of ministry, and that's something that we've built into our ministry model here at Mudgee to think about how can we actually multiply this ministry throughout the central west of New South Wales. So it would be a wonderful thing in 10 years' time if, I don't know, half a dozen districts in the central west of New South Wales were effectively fully reached in terms of every soul out there
Fully reaching.
Continuing, and obviously continuing to reach out in their communities. That would be a fantastic situation, because there are about 500,000 people in the central west of New South Wales, as I see it, which is really, I define it from Dubbo to Wagga, and there are all sorts of definitions out there, but that's the one I've chosen. And whilst that, is so small compared to Sydney, it's a fraction of Sydney's population, for example. it's still 500,000 souls. And, very few of them are going to actually be in any church fellowship. And so it's a huge mission field. And we just want to make sure that we can reach as many of them as possible and just, connect with them winsomely, caringly, find out their story, where they're at, and ask if we can share Christ with them, and then call them to follow him if we think that that's what God is doing in their life. So it's a very simple ministry, but the more and more souls that we can reach for and win for Christ, the better.
Great. It's been great to get to know you guys, and I hope that people from St Thomas Anglican churches get to know you a bit better as well.
Indeed.
And please know that we'll be praying for you individually, praying for your ministry, and continuing to support you as best we can through the best ways that we can. Please know that we recognise the work you do is difficult at times, challenging, but we thank you for your work.
Well, if we may say, it's great to see both yourself and also Ken, and it's great to have you come and visit us out at Narromine 2 years ago. We're very thankful for your support, your prayerful and financial and pastoral support. We really do greatly appreciate everything that you do. It was a great joy to visit the Ropes Crossing Church last year on one of our deputations, and I do hope that we'll be able to make a visit to see you in person next year.
That'd be great. Adam, the couch is back to your hands now.
Well, thanks, James and Brittany, for sharing with us of the work that you're seeking to do for Christ, not just in Mudgee, but in the Central West. James and Brittany are with BCA, the Bush Church Aid Society, a society that's been working across Australia for over 100 years now, and a society that we've supported at Tom's now for many years. Previously the Goscombe, Richard and Tracy in Wickham in Western Australia, and now with the Damons at Mudgee. We have little boxes. One of the key ways of raising support through Bush Church Aid are the BCA boxes. They're available on site at church. Great way to, when you buy that coffee and you've got that 50 cents when you've actually used cash, chuck it in there. Fill those boxes up, and we can make those donations to BCA. We'll even put some out when we get back to serving tea and coffee at church, having a BCA box there, and you can chuck some money in there for your coffees at church, just as a way, not really to buy our coffee, but a way of saying, let's keep supporting this vital work of Christ to the millions of people that are in regional Australia. Thanks again for joining us on the couch. If you'd like to know more about the work of BCA, you'll find links on our YouTube channel that you can click and investigate more the work of BCA. Thanks for joining us tonight.